Hello class 10 and welcome to your economic application class once again. I'm your Nigam sir and today the topic that we are going to study is inflation. In this video, the objective is to study the meaning of inflation and its different types. We often have come across this word inflation in different news channels, and we also have read this word in different newspaper and magazine. Now let us understand what do you mean by the term inflation. Inflation is a sustained increase in the general price level of goods and services in an economy over a period of time. Inflation can also be said as a situation in which the price of goods and services persistently rise at a fast rate. So, what do you mean by inflation? Inflation refers to a situation in which the price of all goods and services in an economy rise at a fast rate over a long period of time. It is important to note here that inflation refers to a state of rising prices and it is not a state of high prices. Moreover, we can say that every type of rise in price level cannot be said as an inflation. For an inflation to be called as inflation, it is a sustained or it is a rise in a price of goods and services at a fast rate over a long period of time. If there is a rise in price level for a short period of time, for example 6 months or 8 months, then that situation is not known as inflation. And inflation is a prolonged period of rise in the price of goods and services for a long period of time. Normally, during the time of inflation, the purchasing power of money decreases. I have put a picture of how the value of money decreases during a period of inflation. We have seen out here how the value of money has gone down and the prices of goods has increased during the time of inflation. During the time during this time of inflation, normally what happens is that the people have to spend more to buy the same amount of commodity. Or we can simply say that with the same amount of money, they are able to buy less quantity of commodities. So this means that the value of money has decreased, as a result of which we are able to buy less quantity of commodities. So that situation is known as inflation. Now let us understand what are the different types of inflation. There are four types of inflation. They are creeping inflation, walking inflation, running inflation, and lastly the hyperinflation. Now let us understand each of these inflation in detail. The first one is creeping inflation. Under this type of inflation, the rise in prices of goods and services is very slow, like that of a snail or a creeper. That is why this type of inflation is known as creeping inflation. Under this type of inflation, the price rise just by a small amount, that means it might be 2% annually, and which is regarded as safe and essential for economic growth. Normally, whenever the price rises in an economy, the profits in them also rises. So seeing this, the producer would be encouraged to produce more and invest more. As a result, the production in the economy increases and the economy will experience the economic growth. So that is why the creeping inflation is considered to be as safe and very important for economic growth of any country. The second type of inflation is walking or trotting inflation. Under this type of inflation, the price normally rises moderately and the annual rate is in single digit. That means the rate of rise in price ranges from 3% to 10%. It is considered that this type of walking inflation is a warning signal for the government to control it before it reaches to the next level of inflation or before it reaches to the running inflation. The third type of inflation is running inflation. So under this type of inflation, the price rises rapidly at a rate of around 10 to 20% per annum. So this type of inflation is known as running inflation. Under such situation, it normally badly affects the poor and the middle class people as it affects their pockets. They have to spend more to buy the same quantity of a commodity. Therefore, this type of inflation is very harmful for the economy, and the government should take necessary steps to control it before it reaches to another very grave situation for the economy, before it reaches to the another level of inflation, that is hyperinflation. Now let us understand what do you mean by hyperinflation. Hyperinflation is that inflation when the price rises very fast or rapidly at a double or triple digit rates, and the rate might range from 20% to 100% per annum. So such type of inflation is known as hyperinflation or galloping inflation. This type of inflation normally brings total collapse of the monetary system because of the continuous fall in the purchasing power of money. So whenever an economy experiences hyperinflation, the purchasing power or the power of money goes down so much that it is very difficult for the people to sustain their normal life. This kind of inflation was experienced in Germany after the First World War in 1923, and it was also experienced in China after the Second World War in 1947. So this is how the people were affected by hyperinflation in Germany and China. So we have come to the end of this video. We studied about the inflation and we studied about the different types of inflation, that is creeping inflation, walking inflation, running inflation, and the hyperinflation. Thank you everyone for watching this video.